So what is transmedia? This is a quote from a man called Henry Jenkins, who wrote the Bible of transmedia called Convergence Culture, and that is a book that you should try to read. So Henry says, transmedia storytelling is storytelling by a number of decentralized authors. So that means, potentially a games producer, a TV producer, a film producer, a producer for mobile, a producer for console games, all working to create parts of the same universe. So the decentralized authors who share and create content. So transmedia, so create content for distribution across multiple forms of media. So we all know what those forms of media are: TV, internet, mobile games, etc. Transmedia immerses the audience in a story's universe. And I think this idea of immersion is really, really important. Immerse an audience in a story's universe through a number of dispersed entry points. So not just the television screen, not just your mobile phone, not just your computer, but different points, different doors into the universe that you're creating. Providing a comprehensive and coordinated experience of a complex story. And I think coordination is a big thing about transmedia. And the transmedia producer is coordinating different people from different disciplines with different priorities to create one coherent universe. Coherence is really, really, really important because the audience know when bits of your universe do not connect together properly and contradict each other or don't feel like they come from the same place. In the old world, the producer, you guys, was at many removes from your audience. You made the content, you gave it to a television network. The television network decided when to put that content on. The television network broadcast the content. The content was delivered to the audience at a time of the broadcast network's choosing. And the people who watched the content had no idea who made that content. Whereas, of course, now, you, as producers, can be in a much more direct relationship with that audience or that community of people. So the function of a device defines the form of the content that appears on that device. So a book, a novel, is the length that it is, because that is what you can hold in your hand. And a feature film is the length that it is, because that is the average amount of time people are prepared to sit on their bottom in the dark with strangers. As you move to devices that can do pretty much anything, so they can do text, they can do audio, they can do social networking, they can do interactive content, they can do gaming, they can do video, they can do it all. You're going to start seeing that the content that sits on those platforms is going to be less defined by the functionality of the platform. My feeling is smart producers, which I guess everyone in this room is, or thinks they are, or wants to be, will use every opportunity that they have to innovate on these new platforms and to discover what the form of content can be on devices which no longer define the form of that content in any meaningful or any sort of restrictive way. Digital media needs to understand that unless we start to produce emotionally meaningful experiences for people, we will remain one of the media as opposed to the media. So inside a space like Farmville, for example, in Facebook, the average revenue per user, ARPU, a good phrase to frighten people with in meetings, the ARPU in an online social game is now $1.42 per user per month. So if you have 100,000 people in your social game, for example, if you have created that in an average way, you will have a revenue of $140,000 a month, which, as we all know, is really, really great. And over the course of a year, you're looking at, you know, $1 million, $1.5 million. And so I think that thinking about, and one of the things we're seeing more and more, these people achieve it by doing what's known as microtransactions. So small amounts of money often. That's how the App Store works for Apple. It's how Skype works. You spend such a small amount of money so often that you never think, oh, you always feel like it's a good deal. The other thing that Transmedia does, obviously, is extend the life of your project. Digital media allows creators to use their brands to create communities, and we've talked a bit about communities, and we'll talk more. Facilitating a community is really, really different from talking to an audience, because you've got to nourish the community, you've got to facilitate the community, you've got to reflect the community and respect them. And that's really, really different. But what that means is that they have understood a thing that many other industries have understood for a really long time, which is service, right? They are in the service of that community. And TV and media, it's not that used to the idea of service. We make it, you watch it. End of story. That's really different. What does that dialogue mean? You know, what does a dialogue mean in a media context? You know, I think it could mean, you know, allowing the audience to post content on the internet. It could mean allowing the audience to forward bits of your content and share bits of your content. It could allow your audience to rate your content. Oh my God, rating your content. What if they don't like it? And then I think, you know, the holy grail of all this is audience members who are able to generate content that does cross the line and become part of the official world of your brand. And that is a hard thing to organise, but I think it's coming, and I think that, you know, when we're talking about transmedia universes, they are really big, right? And it would be helpful if you were not having to make everything in that universe. Because over the course of 100 and whatever it is now, 120 years, cinema has developed an incredibly complex grammar with which to communicate with you in the audience. And so sophisticated is this grammar that you don't even notice the grammar, what you do if you're obsessed with story like we are, because you spend your whole time going, oh, yeah, there's the first act, oh, yeah, there's the second act, oh, there's the hero, you know. But most people do not notice this grammar being shown to them. But digital media is very young. Digital media is probably, what, 20 years old at the most. So our grammar is very, very basic. So a lot of the job that we have now, if we want to be able to, for example, to produce stories in digital spaces that can make people, for example, feel nostalgia for their childhood, we have to think about the grammar that we have available to us. There's an ancient proverb that says that the shortest distance between two people is a story. And I think that, you know, connecting people up with stories will always be something that human beings want and seek out. And as I was saying earlier, you know, the really, really good news is that I believe that of all the groups working in the media right now, you guys, storytellers, are the most likely people that these sorts of experiences are going to come from. And he said, you have to imagine that you are telling a story to a bunch of people around a fire, and the minute you see them look away from you, you've lost it. So you have to tell your story all the time from the point of view of holding their attention. And again, I think that sounds really obvious when you say it, but it's amazing how many projects you see, particularly in digital media, that are really not concerned with doing that, in my view, as much as they should be. But, you know, to that point earlier about we used to put a platform in the middle of our thinking, and now we put IP in the middle of our thinking. And then I think we start to push content out into platforms according to what those platforms can do. And obviously the platforms that our audience has access to. So the people, as I say, are over half the content, and I think that we're very used to making everything, thinking we've got to make everything. But I don't think that we do have to make everything. I think we have to provide the tools and the permission for the audience to start filling in the world themselves. And that's a really scary thought, because we're really used to being God, you know, and controlling everything.